Today is November 7th, 2010, and my name is Marty Dick. I'm interviewing June Howard, who is the owner of a number of acres of property, including the Pilot Mine and 2 cabins near Sunshine Canyon, on Sunshine Canyon, and near the town of Sunshine, which was affected by the Fourmile Canyon fire in September 2010. The interview is being recorded for the Maria Rogers Oral History Program, and the interview is being filmed by Megan Bowes. What can you tell us to help us understand the property that you own in Sunshine, June?
My husband first acquired about 17 acres back in 1965. He was the owner of the Boulder Hotel at that time, and an old man came to him and said, "Mr. Howard, do you know anyone that wants to buy a mountain cabin?" And Ed said, "Sure, I'll buy it." And just sight unseen, that's how we got it. So it was very exciting to try to find it, which was quite an operation. And one old man, Forrest Jones, who lived up there forever, he said, "Well, the markers are right over there by that big rock," which wasn't very helpful. But anyway, we located it, and the cabin had been the cabin nearby, which was a business office for the mine. No one had been there except party goers who were there illegally since 1950. The calendar was on 1950.
And can you tell us a little bit about that cabin and how you felt when you entered it for the first time?
It was a very magical moment. There were old records sitting on the kitchen table, which was really a lovely oak table, but they had painted it. It's god awful white with red trim around it, and there was linoleum on the floor, and big old cupboards, they were called, where heavy overcoats were stored. And as I remember, the children ran around and caught lizards, and there were lots of mice that had taken over the place also.
Do you have a picture of that cabin?
Oh, yes. This one, or, oh, I was going to hold it.
Yeah, is that the cabin you're talking about?
Yeah.
And the name of that cabin is?
They named it Casa Loma, and it means little house on the hill. And it seems sort of neat, and it's got that little sign on it.
Which says Casa Loma.
Yes.
And that was already there when you arrived.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just seemed as though they left one day never knowing they would ever come back. Mm-hmm. And I think of that myself. I think, is this the last time I'm ever going to be here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how recently have you been there?
Oh, maybe 2 weeks ago. I've been up twice to see what the fire did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how did the fire affect Casa Loma?
Really not at all. We were just so thrilled that the shaft house had been saved because we'd heard it had burned. And the little cabin nearby, both of them just, in fact, when you sit out on the deck, which my husband added later, you have to look hard to see any evidence of the fire. Mm-hmm. It's just totally green.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how did you and your family change Casa Loma to be a second home for you folks?
We got rid of, I guess I gave them to the Goodwill, all those heavy old overcoats, mm-hmm. and we got rid of the cupboards that they were in. I don't remember what we did with those. And I brought back to the house here a lovely wicker rocker that I thought somebody would steal pretty easily. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that heavy. Mm-hmm. And we brought down the old ice box also. Mm-hmm. Back, it's on my patio. But so then, at some point, some young kids who needed a place to live during the hippie era lived up there, and they built on stilts a bed over the other bed that was in the room, and we just kept that until recently. My son took out that too. So there have been some improvements.
And what about plumbing and electricity? Does it have either of those things?
Neither. You have to carry water. You can use water from the stream, which is right down below, to wash dishes and things, but drinking water you have to carry in, and there's an outhouse. And some people think that that's pretty terrible, but actually no one likes cleaning bathrooms. It's kind of nice not to have one.
Excellent. Excellent.
So, oh.
Did you and your family go there very often while the kids were growing up?
Oh, yes, we did. My children, I suppose, had a few parties I didn't know about. And then my second daughter and a friend of hers lived up there for about 2 months. She knitted like crazy when it got too dark to see, but it was in summer, so the days were long. And I don't know how they did about food, but managed pretty well. And then my son lived up there at different times too. And then that era passed, and when my grandchildren got old enough, I took them up there for overnights, different families. And they seem to remember that during the fire they were all so concerned, and they remembered. One funny story I often think about was I took Maddie and Allison. They were about 6 and 8, I guess, something like that. And I always took them hiking, and sometimes the hikes were too long. They didn't. So Allison was complaining and whining and sure that she was lost. We were lost, and I'd never get back. Anyway, at one point she said to her sister, well, anyway, Ed, her grandfather, likes me better than you. And Maddie, without missing a beat, said, well, no wonder. You're just like him. Nothing's ever right, always complaining and whining. And I just about rolled off the mountain laughing.
Where did you hike from there? Did you hike from the cabin, or did you hike other places in the area?
We hiked from the cabin downstream and then back up again, both ways, or upstream and down again. We hiked on the mountain directly across from crossing a stream from the cabin, and I once stayed overnight all by myself. That didn't happen too long, often, but there was. When we first saw it, a lot of wildlife. When we were walking down there to find it, we scared up a whole bunch of prairie chickens. And then, I want to get that right, so I'm not saying something that's not true. There were very few neighbors. It was quite isolated at that time. The people building moved in later. But
did you have, what was your access? How close could you get a car to the cabin?
The road is really dreadful. And that's probably good, because that way no joyriders go down there. But you have to know how to stay up on the ridges of the ruts. And so it was about a 20-minute walk down from like County Road 83. From there it's even a little further. And then there's another way you can go in from Sunshine Canyon Drive. And you have to go through other people's property to get there, but we had access, so yeah.
So but everything that was in there, you put food and stuff in a pack and
yeah,
carry, and water. actually would be the heavy,
That's right.
heavy issue.
So everyone going had to carry. Yeah.
Right.
And a neighbor of mine, we park in my meadow, which is practically, well, originally her house, even their dog pen was on our land. But from her place in our meadow, it's only about a 10-minute walk down, 20 minutes back maybe, because it's uphill going back. Yeah. But to go back to the wildlife there, there have been hummingbirds. I found their nest, western tanagers, and I mentioned the wild turkeys. And then for some years there was a goshawk that was just really rare. Then as people started building and moving in, the goshawk left because they're very secretive. But that was a thrill. It attacked me one day because I discovered where its nest was. And that was a new experience. Yeah.
And animals?
Well, I saw a porcupine once, and of course deer. And then when people started feeding bears up there, then the first time to see a bear was a very exciting thing. And it ran because, you know, I thought, well, I should try my hands over my head, backing up slowly maneuver. And the bear lifted its head up where it was grazing and ran off. And the wildlife people were very glad to know that it ran. Then they became more and more common till now the neighbors up there have realized it's just stupid to be feeding the bears, and so they're getting rare once again.
Did you ever see mountain lion?
My son saw one not too long ago. I've never seen one. It was pretty scary, he said. They are tremendously big. Yeah, but he's not seen it again. And so.
And he sometimes stays in the cabin?
Yes, he does. He has really cleaned it up and gotten all the mice out of the walls, and it's as neat as a pin. And he's very careful not ever to leave any food up there to tempt a bear should it come by.
And how is the cabin heated?
Wood stove. And when Joe stays up there, I've convinced him that he should not have any heat at night, just put more blankets on, and he's agreed that's a good approach because it takes an awful lot of wood. But of course you need to be cutting also because the trees are too thick. So there's certainly a plentiful supply. It's just a lot of work to cut down the tree, get rid of the slash, and eventually split the wood and then haul it up to where you can use it.
The picture you showed us of Casa Loma had no trees anywhere near it. What does it look like now?
And that's still true. Joe feels that that's a protection against fire. And also he feels that to have it be open that way, intruders are less likely to try to break in than if it were surrounded in trees. So I let him make that decision. I don't always agree with him, but most things I let him go with it.
Are there other things about Casa Loma you'd like to share with us?
Oh, it's just a wonderful place. I love to eat lunch there. I used to hike a lot. Now I can't do that anymore. But I still have lunch with Joe up there a lot. And I've taken, besides my school kids, historical society members, a lot of people I've taken down to see it. And as you know, the county has landmarked it, and
Did they landmark the whole property?
no, just the
You want to turn that?
historic preservation
Thank you.
of the pilot mine and shaft house. Can you see that okay?
If you move your hand.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us about the pilot mine?
Well, Ed was the one who knew most about it, and that's when I would take my fourth graders up there, Ed then would, in small groups, take them down and tell them the operation of the mine. He always said, they didn't hear a word I said, but then I had them write letters, and with a little prompting, they did write very fine letters of all they had learned. But the experience, I think, was good for them, and we went, again, in small groups, hiking either downstream or upstream. Parent volunteers were wonderful.
And here you have a picture of the kids.
Oh, yeah.
At the mine.
Yes.
And those kids would have been your,
Fourth graders.
from which school?
Foothill.
From Foothill.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you took them there, what kind of a special day did they have?
It was very special. In the spring particularly, I took them on lots of field trips. But one field trip that they, sort of a culmination, I guess, of the whole thing, was doing the Mesa Trail. And then going up to my cabin was another very special day. We first stopped at Ms. Whittemeyer. She was just B. Whittemeyer. She was such a generous, good person. And although it was 9 o'clock in the morning and they probably had breakfast an hour ago, they certainly gobbled up all the donuts and chocolate milk that she served them, orange juice. And
Where was her home?
right there at the mouth of the canyon. She has the original cabin has been preserved. And that's what she showed them then. Mm-hmm. How they thought the cabin was so cool that they, mostly well-to-do kids who had big houses, and here was this tiny little cabin, little small rooms, small beds, and just the whole experience was an eye-opener to them. And then after Bee's place, we went to Bald Mountain and saw Forrest Jones's farm in the way it was originally. Well, no, the house had burned, but the old barn was still there.
Which also burned in this
That's
fire.
right. Now it's gone as well. That's right. And then I think then it was getting on towards lunch, and we went down to my cabin for lunch and for seeing the shaft house and Ed talking to them and some hiking. And then we hiked back up to where their parents' cars were, or the school bus, whichever, and went on up to Sunshine and showed them the old Sunshine School, which was full of junk. I had cleared a little space where they could sit down and try to give them some idea of what it was like in the old days. And then we went to the cemetery, and kids love cemeteries and hearing about death. So I'd tell them the story of there are many children's graves up there, often with touching little verses written on them. But there's a beautiful little lamb, probably the nicest thing in the cemetery, and that's what kind of worries me now, that it's been burned over and it's so exposed to the road, whereas before people were whipping by without really knowing there was a cemetery there. So we may go ahead and get a new gate and make it impossible for a truck to drive in and haul things off.
And things would be so heavy they wouldn't.
Yeah, you'd
wish to
think
do
so. Yeah. But anyway, about the first little child had died just as a baby, and then the second one died as a result of falling. He was carrying a knife, which you wouldn't allow today, and died from the infection, because that was before penicillin, and all of this was like, wow, to the kids. So yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about the pilot mine as a mine before, as you found it?
Yeah, it was, we knew this from, as I mentioned earlier, all those records that were left on the kitchen table up there. It was quite a good mine and kept going longer than any of the mines in Sunshine. when mining was cut off by the President Roosevelt in 1944, I think it was, because he wanted only industries that are connected with the war effort. People just left, thinking they'd come back again someday, but they left the dishes on the table. But they soon found out there's a lot easier way to make a living than mining, and they did not return. So, about the mine.
What was being mined there?
Gold and copper, anything of any value, but those were some silver also. Yeah.
What condition was the mine in when you and Ed first saw it?
Let's see, do we have that picture that
sure
shows it
do.
very clearly? It was really falling apart, and it wasn't built very well either, because they were after the riches underneath. They didn't really care about the building itself.
Could you enter it?
No, there was a shaft going down that my son, we found out later, was one of the ones that put ropes on and went down this rickety ladder, but Ed sealed that off so they couldn't do that anymore.
How far down did the shaft go, do you know?
270 feet. It's a way, way down below the stream, how far down it went.
Do you know when it was started, or who started it?
We think that Mr. Snively's father was the one who discovered that this was a good place to get a shaft going down, and 270 feet, and Mr. Snively then had one of the nicest, he said it was the only house in Sunshine that had a lawn, and he was a great storyteller. And anyway, his father made quite a lot of money discovering this mine. And a funny story I always enjoyed was I interviewed Mr. Snively at his home. At first they didn't want anything to do with me, but then they decided I was okay. And she always had the lovely tea and all kinds of good things to eat. And one day Charlie was going on about the cabin, and Mrs. Snively said, "Charles, you know you could throw a cat through any of those walls." It wasn't that great. But anyway.
You were saying that it went down lower than the level of the creek. Which creek are you referring to?
Sunshine Canyon Creek.
Which originates where?
Just right up above, in the upper reaches of what once was the town of Sunshine. The streams come down, converge, the trickles of water, and then it becomes quite a nice stream. It dries up nearly every summer, but there still are always pools where animals can get water to drink. Comes out at the mouth of Fourmile Canyon Creek. Yeah, that's what the name of it. And again, you'd think, why do we name everything the same thing? Because there's 4 Mile Creek, but this is Fourmile Canyon Creek that we're talking about.
Does it come out somewhere near the Annie White Trail?
It is. That's the Annie White Trail is on it. And the Whites, wonderful people that they were, established open space 30 feet on each side of the stream. So the houses can never be built down there. It's one of the few unspoiled canyons that you can walk up with no houses.
And obviously, the pilot mine also has had some preservation done to it after you first saw it in its original sort of dilapidated state.
Well, Ed repaired the roof, and then it was later that that's the way it looked
Oh, that's the way it looks now.
Now, yeah, that's right. Ed just did the roof, and he didn't do anything about the windows had all been knocked out, and my son and friends rebuilt on the north side where the water was coming in, eroding and it's right on the edge of the bank, a steep bank down below it. And so over the years, the county was very helpful, and the state, in getting grants, matching funds. And one of the most important things we did was to hire a contractor to get steel beams underneath, so it's cantilevered, even if more of it inside collapsed. The building itself is supported by these steel beams. And then later oh goodness, let me think. Where are my notes? Because they're, well, the steel beams was a major thing that we had done.
How were they installed?
I don't know how he did it.
Sounds like they would have needed heavy equipment down there.
Yes, right. That's true. That was one of the problems, is getting the heavy equipment down there. Very good, Marty. And rebuilding the roof, and that is scary because you're up so high and on ladders and stuff. And then, but another problem was it was built right into the side of the mountain, and so all this water was coming down and rotting whatever you had done at the sides of the building, for example. And so we had a massive excavation done. I couldn't, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. But this guy from, oh gosh, all of a sudden I can't think of their name. Anyway, he, with his earth mover, was up there tipping along. I thought, oh my God, he's going to fall in the stream. But he was just an expert, and he did a massive excavation. So now we've got the drainage so that it is away from the building. That was a problem for a great many years.
And the roof was replaced. Who replaced the roof?
Well, Joe and his friends did part of it, and I guess Ed did part of it. After we first saw it in that wreck condition. Yeah. I was busy teaching, and I didn't pay attention as much as I didn't have time.
So what years approximately did the renovation take place?
Oh, well, let's see. I wrote this down so I would know. Copper and gold, and shut down about 45. Oh, Joe put all the windows back in too, which makes it look as though someone's really taking care of it. And then less likelihood of vandalism. He got vintage windows from this recycle place out east here. They didn't even charge him for them. They were glad to get rid of them, which is amazing. Casa Loma. Oh, well, it got the landmark designation in '98. First 17 acres we got in '65, and then Ed just kept buying up more pieces as they came up for sale. And since 1995, we have about 100 acres.
And
I don't think I answered your question, but
that's okay. You answered all sorts of other good questions.
oh.
Did you have, are those pieces of property now all contiguous?
All what?
Are they all adjacent to one another?
Oh, no. The land is in two parcels. Up on County Road 83 is where we have our mailbox, and that's where I kept my horses. And people used to laugh that Pepper was the only horse with her own mailbox. Anyway, there was about 45 acres up there, enough that the horses had pasture during the summer and could go down to the stream and get water. And then Heidi Batney's and Phil Batney's property is there. and they're great preservationists also. And then the part where the pilot mine is down below, and it's more steep terrain and oh, what should I say? Wilder, I guess.
Can you cross the creek from your property?
The creek goes through our property.
Right, okay, and you can go across it. You can step across it, or
yeah, that's right. Step across is what you can do. Yeah, you have to find the least steep place to go up to find the other boundary, but yeah. And I don't know how many building sites are there. I don't pay any attention to it because the rules keep changing. And anyway, I would prefer not to see it developed at all. But when my children inherit it, well, I suppose they either want a cabin for themselves or they'd like to have some money. I don't know. So,
is there any possibility that open space would want it?
I've talked to them. What they want to do is give me a conservation easement. That gives them more money to buy other stuff. So I've considered that. And the rules change on that as well too. So just waiting to see.
The second cabin, Cottonwood,
Yeah.
we haven't talked about yet. Can you share something with us
Let's
about
see.
that?
Have we got a picture of Cottonwood here?
No?
Oh,
Maybe,
this
maybe
is-
it's in your book.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, yes, this is Cottonwood. Can you see it okay? It was I called it the Winogo cabin because Lucille Pastor, who gave me wonderful pictures and stories to get this book started, and Lucille's grandmother lived there. They had lived there for a great many years, and her mother, oh, I don't know for sure. Her mother had a child there that they never mentioned that she was anything but just one of the brothers and sisters. Anyway, the Winogo daughter married Stephen Pastor, and the old grandmother didn't like him. He was that. She called the children all a bunch of little, oh, what's that word? Without papers. Wops. A bunch of little wops, which later the descendants told me, we never thought that was derogatory at all. My daddy used to hold me on his knee and called me his little blue-eyed wop, and it just really, to them it stood for without papers, and didn't mean it. My daughter told me, you can't say that, June. And so I called these people, and no, they didn't feel it was opprobrious at all, and I went ahead and used it. So anyway, now it is no more. It's burned down, which is so sad.
And what was it like inside?
There were 3 rooms. You walked into the kitchen, and then on one side was, I guess, what they called the living room, and on the other side was the bedroom. And no bathroom, of course, just an outhouse. And there wasn't even an outhouse when we got it. My husband built it later. And people used to tease him that your outhouse looks better than the house. And of course it was illegal. You weren't supposed to be putting outhouses in on property in Sunshine.
And how is that outhouse now?
That it didn't burn at all. It wasn't. It was just so weird the way the picnic table in front of the cabin and the outhouse in back, not touched, but just the cabin burned. And so we recently have had the, not Knights of Columbus, but some Daddy Bruce Benevolent Society has come in and took away all the terrible looking junk that was left, the ugly old refrigerator and the butane tank and all that stuff. So I don't know if we're going to rebuild something there or not.
Was that used? Had that been used recently?
No, we would go up there and have picnics, but we most always stayed overnight in the one down by the mine, the Casa Loma. Yeah.
How far apart were Cottonwood and Casa Loma?
It would take about 20 minutes to hike from one to the other.
And so, if I get the geography correct, Cottonwood was higher up the hill.
Yeah, straight down from 83.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a map in here somewhere
Yes.
that shows that. But actually, maps don't tell the whole story because of the terrain. But, my friend Heidi didn't mind that I cut across her property, which made it even shorter to go from one cabin to the other.
That's a very nice map that is at the beginning of, did you get it enough? At the beginning of the book called Stories of Sunshine,
Life in a mining camp.
Life in a Mining Camp, that you wrote to tell not only the stories of the buildings that you've already described, but also of the whole town of Sunshine, and the Sunshine School and the Sunshine Cemetery were all described in great detail in this book.
I just found the people that I interviewed so interesting, and they were so fun to talk to, and I just I remember Dee Bailey, whose picture is in here, that picture where she says, "We was a hard-looking bunch." And I think in many cases that was the only picture those young people had, because cameras were not well known then. And so anyway, what was I saying about? I don't know.
You were talking about the location of the Cottonwood cabin in relationship to the Casa Loma cabin, which was above, if I understand correctly, the pilot mine.
Yes, yes. And so actually Casa Loma was just on the same level. There was the road to get the ore out. It was not too bad. That was a reason that you had access to it. And then Cottonwood was the Winogo home, and once I asked Forrest Jones what was in the little room down below, and he grinned and said, "That was the still." And there was some of the old equipment still left, but most of it got hauled away during the World War II for metal, which they melted down. And that was the still.
So somebody was living there.
Oh yeah, I think the Winogos even were. It was, everybody had a still. It was usually hidden, but one old guy I interviewed said, "We used to follow the Federals when they were trying to find stills and steal a little ourselves." But they were pretty common during Prohibition.
Was there a still in Casa Loma?
No, not that I know of.
One still served both houses, perhaps.
Perhaps, yes. Yeah. Oh, I know, we were going back to how the mines were shut down. And even before that, the two old guys who were still working the pilot just one day decided they'd had enough. It was terribly hard work, and they didn't even go back and get their tools. They just never went back one day and went off and joined the Army. And
that would have been prior to World War II?
This was during World War II.
During World War II.
Yeah.
Do you know who those fellows were?
Oh, it's in my book.
Oh, it's in the book. Okay, I know everything's in the book. All we have to do is read that book and memorize it, and we have all this down.
Oh.
Where is that book available?
At Boulder Bookstore and McGuckin's. McGuckin sells lots of them. and they're such great people to deal with.
When you were speaking of the when Pilot Mine was working, that there was a road that they hauled the ore out.
Yeah.
Which road was that?
It's the road that's there today. It's changed a little bit, you know, certain corners have been shortened and that sort of thing, but it's the same road.
Very, very bad condition
Yes.
now.
Because over the years, the road washes away till it becomes like a river going down. And Joe and other people too have tried to divert the water off the road. And my friend Heidi Batney, I think, is very smart the way she uses these special rocks that do not erode. They stay there. The water goes through them and prevents further erosion.
Are they natural rocks or are they artificial rocks?
I'm not sure about that. They may be artificial rocks. They're very sharp, and you can drive over them. It's not going to puncture your tire or anything. But they keep the ruts from eroding further, and they slow the water down so it doesn't erode so effectively.
It sounds like kind of a rock culvert.
Yeah, that's right. So, let's see, what else? Oh, we were talking earlier about, I said how I'd seen porcupines and a bear when they were rare. So the wildlife varies some. Joe sees a rabbit every once in a while, and there are foxes. One fox family had lived under Cottonwood cabin forever. Their home is gone. And as I saw blue grouse hiking up there in the early days before so many people came in.
Did you ever see a raccoon?
I've not seen raccoons up there. Other people have, but I've not ever seen a raccoon.
Coyotes?
Not too much. The foxes compete with them.
Yes.
And so, yeah. I mentioned seeing a hummingbird's nest that was eye level, and I was careful not to push it so that they would stay there. But that was such a thrill. And my friend, who's an expert birder, told me that they never reuse the nest. So I clipped it with the clippers, and I have a nest collection that now that's forbidden. But it was very enlightening for the kids I taught over the years, and so I still have it. There are chipping sparrows that nest up there. They have this beautiful little perfect nest. I've often said if I were a creature wanting a nest, that's the kind of nest I'd want. But that's the other problem with people letting their dogs run, is that all the ground nesting birds are no more because of the dogs everywhere. And the dogs just destroy all wildlife. And people always imagine that, oh no, my dog never leaves home. Well, they don't know what their dog is doing. And so, wild turkeys in the Casa. Oh, I guess I mentioned all the birds I was going to. Oh, I know about the flowers too, and birds. This ancient book I can't get rid of because of all the notes I've written. And it's really valuable to, first of all, be sure you write down the date where you saw it, and then you can go back and see it again. And as I thumb through it, I think of birds that I'd forgotten that I knew then, owls and creatures. So it's nostalgic. It's like a journal to look at.
Now recently, well, more recently, when you did not live there, but you still visited often, you had a horse there.
Oh, yes. I got Pepper And, oh, I wrote that down, so I'd be sure to have it right. That Pepper. Oh, dear.
Pepper's at the bottom.
Beg pardon?
At the bottom.
Oh, there. Yes, it is. Thank you, Marty. Got her the summer of 1986, and I had her for 13 and a half years. She was just so wonderful. I got her out here at the, used to be Buddy Hayes' ranch, and North Broadway, and he wouldn't sell her to me, he said anyway, till he was sure I could handle her, because his son had raced her all over, and she was she always had to be first anytime I rode with other people. But I rode her from the ranch up the canyon, and that was her new home. And we had an old Shetland still at the time, and that old Shetland just came back to life, is so happy to see another horse. And then we bought a Welsh pony for our grandchildren. And the old Shetland then died. And the Pepper and Sugar was the Welsh pony. Lived up there for a great many years.
And who cared for them?
I went up every day in the winter with water, but in the summer there was enough grass and the access to the stream that they just took care of themselves. And of course, I always fed them hay and grain whenever we went up to ride, which we did a lot during the summer also. And then in the winter, as I say, I went up every day. I had all kinds of volunteers for, we'll take care of your horse if the snow's too deep, but they always plow Sunshine Canyon because of the school buses, so it wasn't really a problem.
Did the horses come up to Sunshine Canyon, so you could get access to the horses from Sunshine Canyon?
From County Road 83 is where the little barn was right up the right off of 83, where the mailbox is. And if the horses weren't there for some reason, they soon came. I would just go a little distance and whistle or call, and they would come.
They knew where the feed sack came from.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that barn still there?
No, that burned in the fire. Yeah. Yeah, it's the fire. You don't realize till later what you've lost. It's but her Pepper's grave is up there. Sugar's not far away. And it'll be interesting to see how the land restores itself. Joe says that already so many pine needles have fallen that the black is pretty well gone. And our efforts with restoring the school are, we might get some aid, special projects from the state. The county has been very good to give me grants, and the state also, a couple of them. It's matching funds, of course, and it usually costs a whole lot more than either one of those two things, but they've been very appreciative. I understand the county doesn't really want buildings like that because then they're vulnerable to lawsuits if somebody injures themselves or something or other. So I don't know what will happen.
Was it affected by the fire?
No, the pilot was not affected at all.
And how about the Sunshine School?
Sunshine School, no, just no problem. The fact that it's right there on the road, easy access, and built of stone. It was the mountain homes that had very narrow roads with all this big equipment they bought that the equipment couldn't get up there. So there'll be more and more emphasis now on preventing fires and the fire department.
Are there other things you'd like to tell us as we finish this interview, June?
Oh, I don't think of anything else. I think it's very nice to share with you these memories. And so many people, since I wrote the book, have died that, and now houses burned, that it makes it more important. Shows the value of writing things down. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would hope that Sunshine Canyon residents are aware of that book, so that they can learn about what isn't there anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them, nearly everyone's got a copy of it, and those that got burned, eventually they'll get another copy.
Yeah.
So,
How ironic.
yes, I know. Yeah.
That the history of the property that burned.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That wonderful old cabin that used to be the stage stop burned.
The one on the corner of 52 and 83.
Yeah. Oh, wait, here is it. 40. Where is that? Thought it was Oh, Forrest Jones was such a great source of history, and he wrote his little book, Recollections of Sunshine. I've forgotten just what it was. The way I remember it.
The way I remember it, right.
Yeah.
And his house is no longer there either, is that correct?
Oh no, Forrest's house is saved.
Oh, Forest House is saved? Is
Yeah.
that Forest House?
Uh-huh.
Oh, will you tell us where Forest House is located?
Right in the heart of Sunshine, on the right. You go past old houses on the left that this young couple just done a beautiful job of restoring, and Tom Stevens restored the other one originally. And then on up the road a little further was Forrest Jones's cabin.
On the right-hand side of the
Yeah,
road?
yeah, as you're headed uphill.
Right.
And Chris Voorhees' place is saved. And it was historic also. So that's, we're so grateful for what was saved.
Right,
Yes.
we are indeed. Well, thank you very, very much, June. This has been a real delight. to
Thank
have
you. This is the shaft house of the Pilot Mine. That's me, the little figure sitting out in front. Joni Bartos was the artist. She did a few liberties. I mean, it really isn't all painted one color, but it's a hodgepodge. But she did a great job. It's very authentic, and she painted me later. I was sitting out here in the backyard, and then she stuck it, you know, she painted it in, and then she did some grasses to, later. I've enjoyed it very much, and the trees have changed a bit, but it that big old the water tank standing there propped up on a post, the bottom of that is rotting out, and so I don't know what we'll do when that falls apart. Ed understood the operation of the mine very well, and like when he was talking to the school children, he could tell them just how it all worked.